Sorry ahead of time for any format issues. I'm posting this from my cell phone. So, for context, I'm 22 and a male, and I live in a large city in the Midwest. Now, I drive for Lyft while putting myself through trade school. I drive for other similar companies, but that's besides the point. I have many horror stories from those as well, but I'll save those for another time. It was Christmas Eve 2020. I was out running Lyft for a few hours before heading to my mom's with my new baby and my wife. Nothing special was going on that night, just the usual. I get a ride request and it was just a pickup, kind of from a lower income apartment complex. No big deal. I arrive and I find my passenger. He has all of his belongings, several boxes of stuff. Now, my car is a 2006 Chevy Impala, so it's not too big. We get all of his stuff loaded up, barely, and are on our way. During the ride, he's crying about his girlfriend. She had just cheated on him. He had walked in on them earlier that night, and he couldn't stay there because the apartment was in her name, so I was taking him to a hotel. Now, in the city, we have a street that is well known for having vices, if you know what I mean. Hookers, drugs, gangs, weapons, and shady motels. The whole works. We get to the motel, and he asks me to wait there for him while he checks in and gets a key. Yeah, no problem, man, I say. I'll confess, I break the rules a little bit when it comes to Lyft. I have a gun hidden and concealed in a holster, secured to the underside of my driver's seat, just for protection. Reason being is, driving for Lyft and other contract apps, I've had knives pulled on me, guns pulled on me, as well as people have tried to fight me or rob me, all kinds of other things. But like I said, that's for another time. This motel was on street level. It was on the street that I mentioned before. Homeless people were everywhere, and there was a dude on the far corner of the complex that still had a needle in his arm. He was passed out against the building. And I'm a big fan of these true crimes and horror narrations, so I'm kind of on edge. He gets his key and the whole motel is on ground level, so I help the guy out and I drive up to the door. As I mentioned before, he had a lot of stuff, so I started to help him unload all of his stuff. While on the second trip of getting this stuff, I saw a guy come out of a room just south of my car, followed by two ladies. They came up to the room that was next to me, not even my passenger's room. One of the ladies started pounding on the door and then opened it. That's when I saw the guy raise a fucking shotgun from under his long coat, stormed into the room with the two ladies following him and slamming the door behind them. Following that, I heard a whole bunch of yelling and shouting. I was just waiting for that shotgun to ring out. Out of nowhere, my passenger came up from behind me. I can take the rest of these, man. Just go ahead and take off. Have a Merry Christmas. And he gave me a cash tip. I didn't even notice that he took the rest of the boxes in, or the boxes out of my hand and slid a $5 bill in my pocket. I was still just frozen. I knew what may have been going down in there. I had to leave, or at least get where I could have my own gun. I know that that guy and both of those ladies saw me, and I know they knew I saw the gun. I had to get out of there, and fast. You know, no witnesses and everything. I got in my car and sped off quickly. I got about a block or so away, and then I called the cops. I gave them every detail. After I got off the phone with the police, I signed out a Lyft. I hadn't made much money, but I was done. I got a call later that night. The cops investigated. They never found the gunman or the women. They never answered the door I saw them come out of. And the occupants of that room that they went into said nothing had happened and that I was full of shit. Well, I know what I saw. Crazy guy took a shotgun into a hotel room and raised it upon entering, closing the door behind him. I won't ever go back down that road again. At the time of this story, I was young enough to be excited to see Santa Claus, and still wanted my picture taken on his lap. But at the same time, I was old enough to know that he wasn't real. My whole family was at Grandma's house in Chapel Hill on a Friday after Thanksgiving. Our tradition was to go to the mall, see all of the sales prices, seek out some deals for some clothes and gifts. Black Friday is always the beginning of the holidays for the shopping frenzies. As soon as we entered the main gallery of the mall, I saw Santa sitting in his chair with a Christmas tree on both sides of him and boxes of wrapped presents with big red bows. There were white reindeer, which had bright colored lights, and a sparkling snowman. Santa sat with rosy cheeks and a big smile, chuckling with some of the children on his lap. He was the perfect Santa, with a little twinkle in his eye. Even if it was a fake white beard, I could easily see. I was so excited, and I screamed, "Santa! Mom, look, it's Santa! Can we please get a picture?" She then looked at the 10-mile-long line and said, "Maybe later, dear, if that line isn't so long. Let's shop for right now." We shopped all morning, and then had lunch at California Pizza Kitchen, a favorite place, and continued trying on clothes in the afternoon. I was so tired, and we rested at the cookie company, Crumble, where I had a snickerdoodle cupcake. It was so delicious. As we re-entered the mall, I saw Santa again. This time there was no line at all. I begged Mom, please, let me tell Santa what I want for Christmas." We walked over, and Mom put $5 in the tip box, held by a plastic elf. I ran up to Santa, and he grabbed me roughly under my arm and yanked me off my feet onto his lap. He was squeezing me very uncomfortably and saying, "Cute little girl, touch Santa. Let's smile." I looked up into his eyes. It wasn't kindly, red, cheeky smile Santa anymore. The Santa was bloodshot-eyed. He had stains and a dirty brown beard. His teeth were rotted, and his breath stunk like an outhouse. I tried to wiggle free, but he kept holding me so tightly against his body. I looked at my mom, who was ready to take the picture with her iPhone. She saw the terror, and she screamed, "Let my daughter go, you creep." She grabbed my arm and pulled me away from his grip. He fell to the floor in a drunken pool of saliva, his beard hanging around his neck. He staggered off and disappeared into the mall. The real Santa was found unconscious and stripped of his costume. He had been mugged on his break, and the fake Santa was never found. This is my chilling nightmare, and a reason I'm afraid of Santa. Personally, the last half of 2017 has been pretty exhausting. The most draining part, both emotionally, physically, and mentally, has been the laborious task of moving my father into an aged care facility due to his rapid advancing dementia. He lives in Tasmania, where I grew up. I am currently living and working in Brisbane, which is about 2,500 kilometers or 1,500 miles for you Imperials, to the north of Tasmania. I have been making the 3.5-hour flight down to Tasmania about 2 times a month to sort out through all of my dad's stuff in this situation. I have been busying myself by fixing up his empty, dilapidated home in order to get it ready to be sold. I moved out all of his furniture and his belongings, except for this pile of blankets and pillows, which I have turned into a makeshift bed on the floor while I'm visiting. The house is situated in a semi-rural area, surrounded by overgrown trees and bushes. It's an old house, it's damp, everything creaks, there is currently no electricity, which makes the nighttime very creepy. The house is not very secure. No alarm system. The doors do have locks, but if you forcefully nudge on them, it'll pop up the door right open. I flew in on Christmas Eve. It was in the late evening when I picked up my car that I rented to make the hour-long drive down to his house. I stopped in at my mate's place, who lived about 10 minutes away from my dad's place, just to have a few beers and shoot the shit about the year that has just passed. After a couple of hours, I realized that I was definitely surpassed in the legal limit to drive. So my mate's legendary wife dropped me off at my dad's house and offered to come pick me up in the morning, so then I can go back to their place and pick up my car. Definitely a Christmas miracle. I entered my dad's house around midnight. Inside the house was basically pitch black, and in my slightly drunken state, I flipped the light switch on and nothing happened. Oh yeah, that's right, no power. Using my phone as a light to navigate my way through the house, I noticed that the other tools that I had laying out all around had been gone, stolen to be exact. I sighed and accepted the fact of it was my own stupid fault for leaving them out in an unsecured house. Some kids probably noticed that no one was living there anymore and took advantage of the situation. It was unsettling knowing that somebody else has been in the house, but I didn't bother calling the police over a hammer, a wrench, a screwdriver. That probably came out to a grand total of like $16.50. Good news was that the big toolbox that I kept locked up in the laundry room, with all of my more expensive power tools, was still there and intact. I studied the padlock and the space around it. It looked pretty scratched and dented, like someone did try to get into it. Nice try, dickheads, I said aloud to myself. The toolbox is very big and heavy. Not one single person can just carry it, unless you're like Andre the fucking Giant or something. Exhausted, I went into one of the furniture-less rooms and made my makeshift bed out of the blankets and pillows. I couldn't get comfortable, and it was taking a while to drift off to sleep. As I was laying there, the only sound that I could hear over my ringing tinnitus was a gentle rustle of the wind through the trees. I could also hear what sounded like an unmistakable crunch of boots on gravel. I tried to listen harder. Then there was a loud gong sound of something solid coming into the contact of the metal railing that leads up to the back door. This makes me sit up wide-eyed, with my heart rate starting to pump. Maybe it was just a wallaby, or a possum. I sat there still as possible, just listening. I can hear the sound of the trees and the wind, nothing else for a few moments, and I started to calm down. This is interrupted by a pop and a squeak on the back door being pushed open. Fuck. I freeze, not knowing what to do. I could hear footsteps creaking through the back of the house, and I hear the laundry room open up. I was up on the other end of the hallway, but I could hear whispering. The only words that I could honestly make out was, "There, shh, quick." I pulled myself together and pull out my phone and call the police. I explained the situation to the dispatcher, and she says that the police are on their way. While this is happening, I can hear a chink type of sound, and I'm assuming they're trying to mess with the lock on my toolbox, trying to break it open. The dispatcher suggests that I lock the door in that room. I agree, and then I slowly pad over to that door. One of the floorboard creaks so loudly, I freeze and hear a dead silence from that laundry room. They must have heard me. After about 30 minutes of standing still, I try to take another step in yet another high-pitched creak. But this seems to work in my favor, because I hear a new house guest scatter away out the back door. I lock the bedroom door and tell the dispatcher that I think they have gone. She tells me to stay put until the police arrive, and I tell her I'm more than happy to comply. After about 5 minutes of waiting, the cops arrive and the dispatcher bids me a farewell. The police did a search on the area and found nothing as expected. They had tried to break into my toolbox. One of the cops says, "Why didn't they just try bolt cutters? Fucking amateurs." And we have a little laugh. I explained to the police that when I did come home originally, that all the tools that I left were stolen, and that the toolbox looked like it was already attempted to break into. Upon hearing that, the cop stated his theory, that they probably broke in earlier that night before you got there. They grabbed what they could and tried to open the box, and when they couldn't, they left to go get something to open it up with. While they were gone, you came home. And then when they arrived here to open up the toolbox, you were already here. I doubt they were dangerous though. Probably just some kids. Good timing, I think to myself. I make a report, and that's that. I stayed up until sunrise and then decided to get a couple hours of sleep until my mate's wife, Lucy, came pick me up so I can go get my car. I asked if I can keep my tools there at their place just for safekeeping. I drove down to my dad's old folks' home and had Christmas lunch with him and his new elderly buddies. The following day, I go to the hardware store and purchase some newer, sturdier door locks. Now, I know this is a few days late, but I wanted to wish everybody a late Merry Christmas. I've still been sick and I still am. It just took me like 3 days to record this. But thanks for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to check out all the links in the description, like my Twitter, Instagram, everything like that, including my Gmail. If you like these stories and you would like to hear more, make sure to let me know down in the comment section. Make sure to like, comment, and if you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. We're doing nothing but growing. Also, make sure to check out the channel members listings for bonus content, creepier stories, and all the extra stuff that comes with it. We've got a lot of content and a lot more coming, so just know that. But with that being said, stay safe, stay scary, and I'll see you in the next one.